Good morning, grade 12s. I hope that you are doing well today, and I hope that you are ready for lesson 2 of creative thinking and problem solving. In today's lesson, we will be looking at the following problem solving techniques. We will be looking at the Delphi technique or the Delphi technique. We will also be looking at the force field analysis. We will also be looking at mind mapping, and finally the empty chair technique. I will explain how each technique works as well as discuss the impact of each technique on the business. When it comes to the impact, remember that the word impact implies both positive and negative impact. So let's take a look at our first technique, which is the Delphi technique. When applying the Delphi technique, the business will identify a particular problem that they would like to solve. The business will then enlist the help of experts to help them solve this particular problem. These individuals will be experts within the field of the problem, so they will be familiar with the issues that they will be solving. An advantage of this technique is the fact that the experts do not need to work together at a specific place and at a specific point in time. They can work remotely and from the comfort of their home or wherever they might find themselves. The business will firstly develop a questionnaire, and this questionnaire will be distributed to the experts, who will then independently answer all these questionnaires, and once they have completed the questionnaires, they will return these questionnaires to the business. The business will look at each of these responses to the questionnaires, and they will analyze all the responses and all the suggestions that have been made by the various experts. Once the questionnaires have been analyzed, a new questionnaire will be drawn up, and then the process starts again. This new questionnaire will also be distributed to all the various experts that are involved in the process already. They will again answer all the questions on the questionnaire, and once they have completed it, again they will return the questionnaire to the business. The business will repeat this process until the problem has evaporated. The Delphi technique has both positive and negative impact on the business. The positive impact includes experts that will be evaluating the problem, which means that they will have an extremely good knowledge about the problem area and their opinions will be reliable. Experts do not have to be in the same location, which eliminates the problem of having to find a suitable time for everyone to get together. Because the experts have vast knowledge in the problem area, complex or difficult decisions or problems may be solved slightly easier. The experts also do not work for the business, so they do not have a vested interest in the business. This also helps to ensure that the information that they provide is reliable. The negative impact of the Delphi technique can be that it is an expensive process due to the administration costs as well as the cost of hiring experts. Experts will not work for free, and the fact that they have vast knowledge in this specific area means that they will charge the business high rates for their services. It takes a long time to analyze the data that's received from the experts, which means that this problem solving technique can be quite time consuming. Also, some experts are not interested in completing questionnaires, or sometimes they might base their opinions on outdated information, which means that the information that they're going to give you is unreliable. The next problem solving technique that we will be looking at is the force field analysis. The force field analysis is used when we want to implement a proposed change or something new, but we are not sure whether it will be a good decision to do so or not. So in doing the force field analysis, we weigh up the pros and the cons to help us make a decision as to whether it is a good idea to implement the change or not. So we'll do a quick example just to show you how the force field analysis works. Just on the design of the force field analysis, you will see that in the center of my force field analysis, I have my proposed change. So if you're doing this on your computer or on a page, you will put your proposed change or the idea that you want to implement in the center of that, because that is your central problem. Then on the left hand side or on the right hand side, however you feel like designing it, it doesn't specifically have to be left or right, but in this example on the left hand side I've got the forces for change. So the reasons as to why we would like to implement the change and why it is a good idea to implement that change. And on the right hand side, I've got the forces resisting that change, or the negatives, the cons, the reasons why we should not implement that change. So let's do a quick example to see how it would work. Considering we are in the lockdown, let's assume that our president is going to use the force field analysis to determine whether we're going to increase the lockdown or not, or the lockdown period or not. So let's say the proposed change is that we will increase the lockdown period from 21 days to 30 days. And that is the change that we would like to implement, but we're not sure whether it's a good idea or not. So that's why we put that at the center of our diagram, because that is our central problem. So with the forces for change, these are the reasons why it is a good idea to increase the lockdown by an additional 9 days. So what we do is we write down all the pros, or all the reasons why we should implement the change. So some of the reasons could be to continue to flatten the curve, and we have seen that the curve has been flattening because fewer people are contracting the disease, because we are not in contact with each other as often as we were. Then another reason could be to reduce the pressure on hospitals, because imagine there was no lockdown and this disease was spreading at a rapid rate, the hospitals would not be able to handle the pressure. So to reduce the pressure on hospitals, we could also have to ensure that more people don't get infected. Okay, so there's 3 reasons as to why we should increase the lockdown. Then the reasons as to why we should not increase the lockdown could be that people are not getting paid, so people need an income. Right, we have seen that there's been an increase in criminal activity, so perhaps we want to, or perhaps a good reason for not implementing change is to reduce crime. And then another reason not to implement the change is because maybe people are becoming frustrated in their homes, and it's not healthy for us to be locked down in our houses all the time. So maybe the health reasons or mental health reasons. So we have mental health reasons. Okay, so there we have some reasons why we should increase the lockdown and why we shouldn't. Once we got to this point, we now need to attach a value of importance to each of these aspects. So the value could range from 1 to 5, 1 to 10, whichever system you would like to use. I'm going to use a value system of 1 to 5, where 1 is a weak force and 5 is a strong force. So if I allocate a 1, I don't feel that strongly about that factor. If I allocate a 5, I feel extremely passionate and extremely strong about that force. And I could be anywhere between 1 and 5. So if I look at forces for change, the first reason was to flatten the curve, and I feel it's quite important, so I'm going to give that a 5. Then to reduce the pressure on hospitals, let's give that a rating of 4. And then to ensure that more people are not getting infected, this is probably the reason why the lockdown is so important, so we'll give that a 5 as well. Okay. Then we look at the forces resisting change, and we look at the first aspect there. People need an income in order to survive. Obviously, there are many people not working, so they're not receiving their salary or their wage, and they still need to pay for goods and services that they're going to consume. So that is quite an important factor there. So I'll allocate a rating of 5 to that. Then reduce crime. Although criminal activity has been increasing with regards to gender-based and home violence, other crimes have not been as prevalent. So I would give this a rating of 4. Okay, and then health reasons or mental health. Although mental health is important, it's not as important as some of the other factors. So I would give this a rating of 2, because we can't really consider someone's mental health when someone's physical health will be affected worse than another person's mental health. Okay, so at this point, we've identified our reasons for the change, or forces for the change, and we've identified the forces resisting change. So what we do now is we add up the values of the rating. So for forces for change, to flatten the curve, 5 plus reducing the pressure in hospitals plus 4 plus another 5 for ensuring people don't get infected. So on the left hand side, I have a total of 5, 10, 14. And on the right hand side, the forces resisting the change, I have got 5 plus 4 is 9 and plus 2 is 11. So 11 is my total on the right hand side. So my forces for imposing a further 9 days on the lockdown is 14, and my reasons for resisting that change is 11. So because my forces for the change outweigh the forces against the change, I'm going to make a decision where we will increase the lockdown period from 21 days to 30 days. So a positive impact of the force field analysis is that it provides a visual summary of all the various factors supporting and opposing a particular idea. Employees feel included and understand, as they will be involved in the process of identifying the pros and cons. Employees also develop with the business. This is because they are part of the decision-making process and will have a better understanding of the business. More informed decisions can be made as forces for and against are critically evaluated. Some of the negative impacts of the force field analysis is that it is time-consuming, since the business must stabilize before changes can be made. It also requires the participation of all business units if the process is to be successful. The analysis developed is entirely dependent on the skill level and the knowledge of the group working on the analysis. The better the skill level, the better the decision-making process will be. And conversely, the lower the skill level, the less informed the decisions will be. Mind mapping is a very popular tool used not just for problem solving, but also for other things like studying or generating ideas, brainstorming, etc. So with mind mapping, what we do is we would normally write down our central problem. Or if we want to develop a process, or we want to develop a thought pattern, then we would write down the main idea. So let's say we were designing a mind map for problem solving techniques. Then at the center of my problem, I would write problem solving techniques. And from there, I might decide to write down all the different problem solving techniques. So we've got force field analysis, we've got mind mapping, which we are doing now, got the empty chair technique, and the Delphi technique. Then what we could do is we could further elaborate on this. So from the force field analysis, I could then go into application of the force field analysis and the impact of the force field analysis. And I can do that for each of the others. application and impact. Right, and then we can go on and develop thoughts of those thoughts. So we can see that the mind mapping process generates quite a lot of thoughts. It organizes things, it can generate a lot of patterns, but we just need to be careful that it doesn't become too overcrowded, because it can also create anxiety or it can create stress with the amount of work that needs to be done with it. You will need to be able to explain the impact, both positive and negative, of mind mapping on the business. The first positive impact is that it is easy to generate ideas, as it also enhances memory. This is often a good study technique, as you will remember the links made in the mind map. Mind mapping stimulates the brain and makes people focus on the links and relationships between ideas. This makes it easy to remember, since the topic texts of mind maps are keywords and short phrases. It helps people to focus and understand the work better. A negative impact of mind mapping is that some people might find it messy and chaotic, which creates anxiety. It can become complicated, as mind maps can become too big and people are not able to understand the structure of the keywords. Mind mapping also requires a sound knowledge of the topic. The final problem-solving technique that we will look at today is the empty chair technique. Let's take a look at this. When using the empty chair technique, you will set up two chairs next to each other. You will sit in one of the chairs and you will leave the other chairs empty. This is where the name comes from, empty chair technique, because one of the chairs are empty. Then you will ask your questions to the empty chair and imagine that there's a person sitting there who is responding to the question. However, you will also think that you are the person in that chair. So essentially it's like interviewing yourself, and you would think, how would you respond to these questions? And the idea behind this is to pose the questions to yourself so that you can respond and think, how would you answer these questions? The positive impact or advantages that the empty chair technique has are the following. Managers are able to get things out in the open and practice dialogues before confronting employees. This is something that you might want to do when you are discussing something sensitive with the employee. So you could practice what you're going to say first, imagine how they would respond, and then plan how you would do the actual meeting with them, so that you are not going to be insensitive or make them upset, or so that the purpose of the meeting is actually fulfilled. The empty chair technique also helps understanding the other person's point of view, because it forces you to look at the problem from different perspectives. There are, however, negative impacts of this empty chair technique for the business. It limits the creativity, as the creativity is limited to one person making all the decisions, or one person's viewpoint, because essentially you are interviewing yourself. So only one person's view will be applied, and this may not always be the best view. Great, Wells. That brings us to the end of today's lesson. In our next lesson, we will look at the nominal group technique, scamper, brainstorming, and forced combinations. This will be the last section of work on problem solving and creative thinking. Next.